few days later, I left the forsaken garden for the first time in a month. The moment I stepped through the gate, a strange sensation crept over me, like I'd shed a layer of protection I hadn't realized I'd needed. The air felt sharper beyond the garden walls, the cold digging deeper into my bones. With Delara at my side, we crossed the threshold into the courtyard, and the wind met us with a sharp breath, stirring dead leaves at our feet. They skittered into the cracks between the stones. The cold slipped beneath my hourie, no matter how tightly I pulled it around me. I hadn't realized how accustomed I'd grown to Legina's gardens. The stillness it held, the strange safety in its shadows. Out here, everything felt raw and uncertain. I glanced back towards the gate, its dark iron arch wrapped in creeping vines, half swallowed. My gaze wandered to the other gates flanking the courtyard. One led to Zeraven Durrell's garden of rending rain. Another opened into the garden of fickle truths, where the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then there was the fourth gate, a black door of rusted iron bars, locked tight. No one spoke of what lay beyond it, and just the sight of it stirred an unease that slithered deep into my chest.
Azhûra is waiting at the top,
Delara said, pointing upward. I followed her gaze to a stairway that cut through the temple's heights, narrow and steep, winding like a serpent through branches and stone. At the summit, silhouetted against the pale sky, stood Azhûra's Sanctum, perched alone, dark and quiet, as if waiting.
Are you ready?
Delara asked. I don't know. My voice felt too small in the open air. I fidgeted with the lock of my hair. Are you sure she's not planning anything bad?
Absolutely.
And you're sure she said it's fine for you to come with me?
Yes.
Her answer came quickly, but something in it unsettled me. The sanctum loomed above, casting its long shadow across the courtyard. It sat like a sentinel, calm, patient, unmoving. Just thinking about climbing those steps made my legs feel heavy, as if the temple itself were pressing down on me. And still, we climbed. She won't be angry, will she? Delara shook her head. You're sure?
Yes.
Her calmness only deepened my unease. If she was this calm, maybe she knew something I didn't. Or maybe I was just imagining it. Everything felt distorted now, like trying to see through murky water. Each step towards Azhûra's sanctum made my breath feel thinner. The knot in my stomach wasn't just dread. It was every worry I'd carried since arriving, pulled tight at once. My empty eye socket throbbed, harder than it had in weeks. 5 minutes later, we reached the top. A smaller courtyard spread out before us, circled by statues, with the wind whispering between them. My breath came too quickly now, shallow and uneven, like I climbed much farther than I had. Before the towering doors of Azhûra's sanctum stood two guards, their armor glinting in the pale light, scales overlapping like insect exoskeletons, the same kind Delara and Ezra had worn on my first day. Their spears stood planted beside them, held firmly in their hands. Their hair hung in tangled strands of deep green-black, and the way they stared, cold, unreadable, made my skin crawl.
Maybe we should go back,
I whispered.
I thought you were okay with this.
Not really. I didn't know why I'd agreed in the first place.
It will be fine, I promise,
said Delara, stepping forward. I followed close, not wanting to leave her shadow. Delara gave the guards a small nod. They didn't return it. Their gazes moved over her like blades. Then slowly, one shifted her stance, dragging her spear just enough to make space for our entry. The other stared at me without blinking as we passed. I swallowed hard, forcing my legs to move. As we reached the door, one guard struck his spear against the ground with a sharp clack, echoing like a snapped bone. The doors groaned open, revealing the dark beyond. Dilara glanced back and gave a small, reassuring nod. I couldn't return it. I stepped forward anyway, feeling like I was crossing a threshold I wouldn't return from. The doors closed behind us with a deep, final thud, sealing out the cold. I tensed at the sound. It felt like a trap had just sprung shut around me. The hallway stretched before us, narrow, damp, lit by flickering lanterns. The walls glistened with moisture, casting warped reflections. Dilara moved ahead in silence. I followed closely. Frescoes lined the walls, shifting, half-moving forms. Some looked like spiders, their limbs woven into chaotic webs, like the fresco of Vex Lankar. Others reminded me of the statues in the Forsaken Garden, strange, hideous, but strangely comforting in their familiarity. Some showed warriors I recognized, those who had marched beside Lord Helrath. Their faces were masks of rage, their weapons frozen mid-swing. But beyond them, the frescoes lost all form. They became chaotic, swirling shadows, limbs without bodies, mouths without faces. They were like things that should not exist, things glimpsed at the edge of sleep, never meant for daylight. My skin crawled just looking at them. We moved deeper, passing under arches that felt like jaws. The corridor narrowed and twisted until we reached a small wing to the right. Dilara turned. I followed. The hallway opened into a garden. The change was jarring. One moment I was in the cold jaws of the Sanctum. The next, I stood in warmth and light. The air was sweet, full of blossoms. Flowers bloomed from drooping trees. Pink dust floated through the air, catching in the light of green lanterns hung in the branches. Bugs skittered along the bark, some winged, some with glowing antennae. And in the center of it all, Azhûra sat waiting. There was no throne, no guards, no drama. Just a low table, porcelain bowls, and a steaming teapot. She rose as we approached her, her hair cascading like ink, her smile soft and open.
"Welcome, my child,"
she said, like I'd just returned home, and that kindness set my teeth on edge. She gestured for us to sit. I lowered myself carefully across from her. Dilara sat beside me. Azhûra poured tea in silence. The steam curled between us, slow and delicate. Then she spoke.
"I owe you an apology, child. The day you arrived, I made mistakes. The feast, your eye. I shouldn't have handled it the way I did. After you passed out and Dilara brought you to the House of Healing, I spoke at length with Lord Helrath. You remember him, surely?"
I nodded, stiffly.
"He made me realize I went about it all wrong. And for that, I am sorry."
There was no anger, no coldness, just softness. Too much softness. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, circling my finger around my teacup.
"Because you deserve to know. If you are to find your place here, as I hope, you must feel free, Zarravenderall isn't only the god of ruin, he's also the god of volition and free will. You will need to know what that means.
She glanced at Dilara. I felt something shift.
There's something else. Your suspicions about Dilara weren't wrong. She didn't come to you in the Forsaken Garden on her own accord.
My chest tightened.
I asked her to help you, secretly, because I knew if the offer came from me, you would reject it.
My fingers clenched on the cushion. I see.
Don't be angry with her. Dilara is a warden of the Order of the Black Sun. She follows my will, not merely out of loyalty, but because it is bound to the divine law we serve. My will is the will of the Erden, woven into the oaths she swore and the soul she bears. To defy it would be a shattering of her very soul.
I sat, rigid. The ache behind my ribs pulsed.
But what followed, that was yours. The stories, the laughter, the kindness. I didn't weave that. And the words of Zarravenderall, all true emotion, whether harsh or kind, must be raw and unbidden, lest we lose ourselves to the will of others.
That made me pause. If the gods they served demanded honesty of emotion, maybe Dilara's kindness had been real. After all, she wouldn't dare fake it. Not if her precious gods demanded authenticity. I glanced at her. She didn't meet my gaze. Her posture was tense, hands twisted in her lap. Guilt hung around her like a shroud.
I care about you, child,
Azhûra said.
After the night of the feast, I left the temple to commune with the Veiled Council. Upon my return, Dilara told me you had rejected the chambers I'd had prepared for you. That had me worried, and that's why I had Dilara come to you. I want to help you. Do you understand? You are very special to me, Emilia. You were born to follow the way of the Erden. I want to teach you what that means.
Her voice softened.
I can guide you. I can help you become so much more than you ever imagined possible.
I stared into my tea, thoughts swirling in its dark surface. A part of me wanted to believe her, but another part, the one that remembered the feast, the pain, the deception, did not.
I'm not asking you to decide now, only to open your heart to see what might be possible.
I looked at Dilara. She said nothing, but her silence felt like a prayer. I'll think about it, I said, though I wasn't sure if I meant it, or if I was just telling her what she wanted to hear so I could leave. Azhûra smiled.
That's all I ask.
She opened a small, polished box beside the teapot. Inside was a pendant, black stone, smooth and cold, engraved with a white circle surrounding a pupil-like dot. Strange. Beautiful.
A token of my regret,
she said.
Take it. You are not a prisoner here, Emilia. You are a guest, an honored one at that.
I hesitated, then reached for the pendant. It felt heavier than it looked. Thanks. Azhûra stood, and we rose with her.
And please, reconsider the chambers. Winter is near. Soon the gardens will grow bitterly cold.
Fine, I muttered. I'll take them. She said nothing, but her eyes glinted with quiet satisfaction. I slipped the pendant into my howry. The meeting was over. but her words clung to me, like vines I hadn't noticed wrapping around me.